Welcome back to What's in Your Kete. I'm Jane, and today we're thrilled to be joined by my special friend Alana Tukuniu, an inspiring healer, teacher and adventurer. Alana is a multifaceted practitioner offering Romiromi, Reiki, Fat Yoga Asana, massage therapy and more. Beyond her healing work, she's also a marathon runner, creative soul and a true dog lover. Get ready to learn about the art of healing, the beauty of movement, and the joy of living authentically. Let's welcome Lana.
Whakalofalahi atu. My name is Alana Tukuniu. So I'm from the villages of Avasele and Tamakotonga and Niue. And my mum's Australian. And I moved to Niue 20 years ago from Sydney. And I'd never been there before, but it was almost literally, I woke up one day and I was on a walk with my dad and I was just like, Dad, I'm going to Niue. And then I just focused on making it happen. And at that time I traveled with my then partner. And then we went over there and then that was 20 years ago. Yep. So my dad is Tevi Tukuniu and my mum is Susan. But more so the people tend to know my grandpa and nana, which is Masini Tukuniu and Salofa Tukuniu.
You land in Niue, and tell me, what is the first thing you do? Well, where were you staying? And
So when we stayed, I was lucky enough that my dad's cousin, who he also grew up with, was there. So it was like all my family made the phone calls before I arrived and said she's coming up, and then so he took me into his house to stay there, and then eventually we moved into the village of Avasele, and I remember it was like almost you arrived 2 o'clock in the morning at that time, so the first thing I probably did was went to sleep, but once we woke up, it was like going around, and it's just like, yeah, I'm staying here. This is it. I'm home. And it was like, I think later that day, I rang my parents. It's like, yeah, I'm staying here. I'm not coming back. So yeah, yeah, definitely. It was just the feeling was so fast, and that's something I've never forgotten. It was quite settled in me. It's like, this is it. So yeah.
had you had any local food before that phone call home to your parents?
I hadn't then, but it was like within that first week of no, it might have been between the first week to first month that my grandpa's brother, who I'd never met before, he dropped off a kato of umu food, and I'd never met him before, and I was just like, I was blown away, like coming from Sydney, where it's like, cities are like everyone's for themselves, really, and it's just like. And I spoke to my dad and I was like, oh, this man dropped off some food. And he's like, oh, that's probably your Uncle Tasso. And I was just like, wow. Like, like there's a whole, umus are not easy to prepare as most of us know. And it was just like a whole basket of umu food for us, like a welcoming. So it was amazing. So yeah.
Wow. And since then, have you gone on to meet your cousins or extended family, I imagine?
Yep. So I have, and then a lot of it is when you meet the matuas, like our older people, they already know the genealogy of families, and so I think it's just once they know who you are, it's like, and everyone's asking like, who's your family? Once they know your family name, it's like, oh, and then a lot of our matuas can roll off, oh, so you're this, and you're related to this person, and we're related this way, or you're related to someone else down there. They'll know that genealogy. And for myself, if I didn't know people, I could also ask my family. So I could ask Uncle Tasso when I saw my grandpa when he came over to Niue, because he was still based in Auckland. I could ask him, how are we related to this person? So it's pretty amazing. It's always the learning of the importance of genealogy, and I'm always reminded of that. still to this day, the links and how it tells our story and connections.
Did you find any difficulties in the lifestyle? I guess, or how did you adjust
Um,
to the transit between moving from Sydney to Niue?
I think it was just the first world problem of no chocolate, no fresh chocolate. That was the only real problem. I was like, oh man, this is hard. And then I remember like when I did speak to my parents, I was just like, Mum, can you send me up some chocolate in the mail? Like just some packets. And she did. But from Australia, it usually took, a couple of months to get up there. And
What year are we
so
talking?
that
Sorry, what
was
is the year we're talking?
December 2004 that I landed in Niue.
And so did they have the supermarket
No, so
then?
the supermarket was much smaller. And there was things that were supplied. Like you had essentials. Obviously, chocolate's not an essential, so it's like, but we had the essentials like their milk, meat, all those sorts of things, all the washing stuff. And it has expanded now, and there's a lot more dairies, little dairies, or little shops in town as well that supply a lot of grocery items. But in terms of everything else, I think it's also, I'm not a city person. So even though I grew up in Sydney, I was like, this life's not for me. And I knew that. So I was like, happy to move somewhere where it's quieter and a better quality of life. And then I was just lucky that to be born as a tangata Niue, that I get to go to Niue, and that's what Niue gave me, and a whole lot more. Yeah, that's it.
Well,
That's it.
home.
So that was
How
amazing.
cool is
So
that?
yeah, I feel really lucky.
So you're still thinking, I'm still staying in that time zone of when you first arrived. What what did your average day look like?
So at that time, so it was sort of settling in, and then on the weekends, I just did a bit of casual work at my cousin's cafe. At that time, just on the weekends, and then during the week, we just sort of go to the bush and do little things as well, and obviously go to the sea because I really love the sea. Go for swims, and just sort of find my way in my own time, because when you go back home, and I see it with a lot of people when they first come back, there's a lot to take in all of our bodies. So like mentally, emotionally, spiritually, there's a lot happening. And just trying to take it in, even though I didn't know that back then, and everything that was processing and integrating within myself.
Yeah, I mean that's the stuff that I guess I wanted to unpack with you was the spiritual connection as well. Spiritual, physical, mental um, challenges or growth rather. I'm not going to say challenges. The growth that you would have gained from yeah going home and reclaiming your culture and the knowledge of the land and even the bush, like going out into the bush. Like, how was that?
Yeah, it was amazing, and when I look back now, because I still find myself I'm still in the early stages of learning, um, even though I've learnt so much in the 20 years. So when I look back now, I can see that it wasn't just actually waking up and going, I'm going to Niue. It was me hearing the call of my ancestors and my tūpuna going, it's time to come back home. And that was a pull. And they'd probably tried a lot before that to talk to me to come back home, but I don't always listen, and I'm still like that with my tūpuna, and sometimes I don't listen properly, and it takes them a while for them to get through. But it was that's what I see when I look back. It was just like, oh, you heard the call, Lana, you heard the call that time, and you went back. And every day since then is about strengthening my connection with my tūpuna, and what that means to me, what it means in my life, and how, I guess, how as well, how it's expressed in myself. And just even now, little things just blow me away where I can see that connection and the relationship. So yeah.
So in reflection of the 20 years you've been there, what have been your highlights or special memories or things that you've achieved? And perhaps that's the wrong word as well, not so much achieved, but in terms of the personal growth and understanding the whenua and understanding how the landscape works or how the ocean works, and how your community come together. Yeah, 20 years later, I mean, what is the differences? Yeah, you've seen, or yeah, what have been some really special highlights for you? I guess.
I think within myself, seeing how far I've come in terms of my identity as tangata Niue, because I was really lost when I was younger and I really didn't understand what it meant. And I think even in the first 10 to 12 years, I still didn't know what it meant. I was still grappling with that a lot. But now when I look back, I'm just like, I'm really comfortable in myself as tangata Niue, and what that means to me. So if someone threw something at me that was quite negative, I can deal with it. And it's like, actually, it doesn't phase me anymore. And it's just like, yeah, I guess like water off a duck's back sort of thing. So that's been amazing to see in myself. Like I can actually step back and watch that and have moments and look back and say to myself, Lana, you've come a long way. When people do say things to me, I was like, wow, you've come a long way. And I'm so proud of myself in doing that work, because we all know it's not easy. It's it's not an easy journey. It's a lot of toing and froing. So that's something I'm really proud of. And I think setting up my business, and even though it's a business, it's actually so much more to me, and the privilege that I get to do what I actually love. And I think that part, it's almost every day where I go to work and I was just like, wow, Lana, you get to do this every day and you get to make a living off this and you get to survive and have income and thrive doing what you love. And yeah, that just, it just every day I just think, wow, like the gratitude for that is just like, wow, how lucky am I? So yeah, yeah.
Now, of course, on the back of highlights there, I do have questions. Were there any lowlights, so to speak, or were there any challenges, or what sort of challenges did you face within the 20 years?
I think sometimes, yeah, I guess it's a challenge when when you're grappling with your identity, and then some people, not a lot of people, just a couple of people might say an offhanded comment like, you're palangi, because obviously my skin's white. That's from my mum. And I remember I used to get really upset and I'd take it really personal back then. But again, working with going through my identity, it doesn't phase me anymore. I think there's a challenge in that if anything happens with my family, like anything not so good, like medical or whatever, it's not easy just to get on a plane. If we're in the season where it's one plane a week and that plane is full, you're not guaranteed to get on. You gotta hope for the best. I think that can be hard. That's when you're reminded of the isolation of where you are. You can't just hop on a train in 5 minutes and be there. There probably are other challenges, but then I don't. Right now, they're not actually. There's nothing that's coming to mind other than what I've said. And it could be as well because I think so much of the privilege and the blessings that I have. So yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. Look, and I don't want to lean into any negative side because I don't think there's any negatives to reconnecting with our whenua and our whakapapa. So it's just really cool to hear you share this with me, and I look forward again for all of us that will get to listen to this. I guess there's the curious sides of me. Just, yeah, like you said, if you want to go home in a hurry, you can't because it's the isolation, and yeah, there's the thinking of the placement of where you are in the world to your friends and family. So obviously, you're not flying home for a surprise birthday or without much planning in between, and you're not going to attend the certain things. But do you have any advice for anyone wanting to return back to Niue or are looking at like what are things that? Do you have any tips for anyone wanting to relocate back home?
Yeah, 100%. And it's just like come back home. And I've seen a lot of interviews and I've heard a lot of conversations from people that haven't been back home. And I hear a lot of their apprehensions about, I think, being accepted, whether it's through not speaking wangahau or not knowing their family. But I can tell you, like, from my experience, is the community, the, the community of Niue and your family, they will accept you and they'll accept you with open arms and know everything will not be perfect. And you may have an argument with people here or there, but for like 90% of the time, Niue is going to welcome you home. Your ancestors will welcome you home. They want you home. They're ready for you. And I see it time and time again. I see it in my practice. When people come back and like the joy of their ancestors of them being back, I see it with myself and it's just like wow. So those apprehensions, and I'm not discounting them that they're not real because I really understand because I've been through that as well. But also imagine they're not as real as they may appear or feel to you at the moment, in that moment. Just come home. Like Niue is ready for you. The community of Niue will welcome you home because that's what it is. It's a community, and your family just they're there ready for you. And it was like I was saying, like so my Uncle Tasso, I'd never met Uncle Tasso before in my life. And then there's a kato of umu ready for me. And I think of all the conversations that we have together, like with Uncle Tasso or my other family, it's just like, I never knew any of these people before. And people in the communities that I'd never knew these people. And then the conversations we have and that real community spirit is like, it's just next level. And I can tell you, my wangahau is terrible, and it's still a thorn in my side. I haven't grappled with that yet. Sorry, I still grapple with that, and I haven't moved through that as much as I have with my identity. But even though you may feel you don't speak wangahau, don't worry, you come back and just immerse yourself, and you'll pick up a lot of things because what I do understand, what I do know is from my time being immersed in places where it's wangahau Niue only. Just like in Niue, it's just like the only language was wangahau. So you learn quickly there as well. So yeah.
Now, looking back at your business, could you share what first drew you to your healing practices like the Romiromi and Reiki?
Um yep. So I started off with the massage and it started like I was staying down in Avasele in my cousin's family house and I can still picture like being on the village green and looking at the sea. And I said to my then partner, I was like, Niue needs a spa and I'm going to do it. I'm going to open it. And it took me 10 years to move on that. So I do everything in my own time. And that's how it progressed. And um, originally I was going to hire somebody to do the work. And then again, one day, and I could put it back to my tūpuna tapping on my shoulders like, you can do this work. And so that's what happened. I decided again, woke up one day and went, I'm going to do my training. And that's what I did. So I started to do my training and I've never stopped. I'm always learning in doing that. And then it was from there to get into the healing work. It was actually one of my teachers. we were having a conversation, and she was helping me out, and she said to me, I think you should do the healing work. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, what are you talking about? I was like, do you mean Reiki? And she's like, yes. And then so, because I'm quite curious, I was like, okay, I'm going to find out what this is. And then I was on Sydney on a holiday, and I was like, I'm going to go have a session with somebody to see what this is all about. And I did. And I was just like, okay, this is amazing. I really like this. And then that started the journey into the healing. And then from there I started to shift into the Romiromi through my own struggles with fertility. And that's how I met my now mentor, because I went for sessions to try and conceive. And my practice with fertility in my own business is the information I wish I knew back then. It was the information that fertility is beyond the physical for a lot of people. That there's so much spiritual energy involved in the conception journey.
I know you've kind of partly answered this, but how has your own journey, your life journey, shaped your approach to wellness and healing overall?
Yeah, I think it's seeing what I struggled with, and I think it's seeing how with each day, month, year that I was in Niue, how my relationship with my tūpuna evolved. And I don't even think evolved is the right word. It's more like pulled the curtain from my being, from my spirit. It's just like, oh, okay, now I understand things that had happened when I was younger. Now I understand why I did this or did that. Now I understand that feeling that I had back then. And just seeing that connection with the unseen world and what a difference it makes in the physical world. And understanding, even though I didn't always understand that, I think being led to that connection with my tūpuna, being led by my tūpuna in steps and doors and pathways of possibility, how it opened up my world and just the interconnectedness of everything. And even now, so my little studio, I have to walk through the forest, and it's a short walk. It's 20 meters. But I often sit there and go, every day I have to walk through the forest to get to the studio. And what a difference it makes that I can sit there and have that connection with my tūpuna, with the world around me, and just actually being in nature. I was just like, how that's made a difference, how it's opened me up even more. So yeah.
Wow, I just felt really transported then thinking about you walking through the forest to your studio and connecting with your tūpuna, like you just said. Um, I definitely want to book a ticket to Niue and embark on one of your next retreats, which leads me to ask you, I'm curious to know what you have in place for 2025. I think the last time we spoke, you mentioned there was a potential for something to happen towards the end of next year, and wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about that.
Yep. So we're hoping to lead a yoga retreat, and I say yoga loosely. It'd be like, I guess, a reconnection retreat that will involve yoga, and that's partnering up with another Niue yoga teacher in Auckland, Stephanie Ikinofo. Something we've had in the pipeline in 2019. We started planning it for 2020, and then COVID happened, and then we reconnected again this year to see if we can make it happen around October, November next year. And it came about because I'd watched a few yoga retreats come to Niue, and it was not run by our own people. And I was just like looking, and I was just like, we can do this. Like our people can do this. We don't need someone from overseas to come and run these retreats here. That our own people can do it, and that's where I started to think. And then it was like Steph came to Niue one day, and then we connected, and it's just like, okay, this is how it's going to happen. So ideally, we're looking October, November in 2025 to hold a retreat for people, and it's not going to be one of those retreats where you have to be like bendy like a pretzel and slim and all that sort of stuff. It's like turn up as you are, be in your body, however the retreat goes for you, that's perfect.
I love that you've said that, bendy like a pretzel, and I can confirm that's true. I have attended Lana's practice in Niue, and I also have attended Steph's practice here in Tamaki Makaurau. These two women are fabulous, and I'm excited to know that their powers are combining. So, for anyone that is listening and interested in a little bit of self growth, time out, and recharging and well-being, I think this is the retreat for 2025. I absolutely endorse it. I wish I could financially endorse you ladies, but the best I can do is to shout out through this podcast. But sincerely, I'm very excited, and hopefully get to come up there and join you on this special retreat. I absolutely adore you and Stephanie both. And as a non-bendy pretzel yoga person, I like to practice in the privacy of my own home in my big oversized t-shirt and tights, sometimes even just in my patio, just to get the old stretch my back and my whatever. But Yolanda, can you revisit or reshare your retreat that you put on during the last Niue Arts Festival, 2018?
Yeah, I think it was 2019.
2019?
Yeah.
Okay, it was 2019.
Um.
That was the one that I attended. So yeah, I was very lucky to attend that. But yeah, I wondered if you could share a little bit more about how that came about.
So I wanted to bring the practice of yoga to Niue and to our community because growing up, so in Sydney, when I went to classes before I moved to Niue, I was like, I never saw anyone that looks like me. And for those of you that don't know me, I am big. So I was like, there's so much more to this practice, and I knew I wanted to share it. And then so I just set up a half-day retreat because I also know I'm quite introverted. So I was like, let's just go half day and see what happens. And so yeah, it was just bringing the practice of yoga in all its forms and to share with our community, so people get to experience, and I think the beauty of yoga, how we get to go inside and see what's happening, self-awareness, self-inquiry, all those beautiful things that are not shown in social media. And so actually felt really, it was great. It was amazing that I got to do that and got to share that with everyone. So yeah.
Well, I was really I must thank you for that, because I was the only non-Niuean woman in the room, and I feel very grateful to have shared that opportunity, because spiritually I can't even tell you where I was that day. It really opened up my heart, and to go, wow, I'm doing yoga in a room with a Niuean practitioner. And there were other women in the room that I knew, but I knew you were putting it on for your community. And I was self conscious that I was not Niuean and taking up space. Um, but I did get to meet you, and you had offered me a space, the last space in the room. So I was very grateful to have that opportunity, because I definitely did not want to take from the woman, any other woman, or Motu. But it was a very, very special day that I came back and raved about to my friends. And when I went on to catch up with Stephanie much, much later on, I told her about that experience. And she said she was coming to meet you, and you guys were looking at combining powers. So it definitely feels like a lifetime ago now, but still, it's a very vivid memory of mine. And then the beautiful feast that was put on afterwards.
beautiful, healthy food. Yeah, I definitely felt like I was doing something very good for my body and my soul and my spirit. So, yeah, I'm very excited to hear about your retreat next year. Now,
Yeah, I
also,
think as well, I don't think you're taking up space though. And when I say community, I guess what I actually mean is like the community outside of the normal community or outside of the social media yoga community. So actually, do you know if you know what I mean? It's just like I don't want the usual suspects in there that we see on social media, and that's why it was beautiful having you in there as well. So I just wanted to say, yeah, no, you're very welcome in there. It wasn't
thank
you
you.
weren't taking up space.
Oh, and
So yeah,
and I also too,
yeah.
not meaning that and taking up space, but I'm just very self-aware that it was a special uh, practice and moment to share with your community during the arts festival. So yeah, I was trying to be a very good guest while on the Watu and quietly observe and be around and not be placing myself like the others do. That we mentioned that we do know how other people can take up space. Hey, so reading your website, I see that you also have you're a bit of a runner and you've completed a marathon. And so I definitely think with that, that's no surprise to me, knowing that you've moved to Niue and all these other fabulous things that you've been up to. I was just wondering if you could share a little bit about your marathon training and how that all came into play as well.
So yeah, so with that, that was the marathon came about. I was reading a book, and then it was just like about a a, a fat lady doing a marathon, and I was like, oh, and it just piqued my interest because I'm always very curious. But in saying that, before that, I've done triathlons in Niue. I've done round the island bike races. I've done all those things because I've never let being fat being a reason why I can't do something. So with the marathon, I read that book and I was like, I wonder if I could do a marathon. And I was like, I'm not sure that I can. Usually I'm quite focused and going, yeah, I can do it. And I was like, I'm not sure I can. So I'm just going to test myself and see how I go and see what happens. And so I signed up for the Hawke's Bay Marathon in New Zealand because I was like, yeah, I want somewhere that looks nice because that's going to distract me. And I think scenery is important. And then so I signed up for that. And then because I already had a base of running from triathlons and things before, I was like, okay, I've got that muscle memory. And then so I started training, and I was lucky it was the off season, so I was a bit quieter and I could go for longer runs. And so I trained and trained, just went for long runs, all those sorts of things. And then, yep, so I flew to Aotearoa for the marathon, and then I did it, and it was not easy. It was really freaking hard, but it was constant. It was the constant talking, mental talking to myself. I was like, "Hey, we're just going to get here. We just need to get here." And then when I hit a certain point, actually, I think I was going up to the halfway mark, and one lady who was skinny and was on a bike said to me, and it was really sarcastic. She's like, "Do you think you're going to make it?" And I said freak, yeah, but it wasn't freak. It was another F word. And I was just like, freak, yeah, I'm going to show you. Because now you've just given me that. You've just given me, I'm unstoppable. Like, that's it. I am going to finish. And I was just
Wow.
like, stuff you for saying that. Like, you don't even know me. And that's what I thought. I was like, oh, you don't know who I am, man. And then I was like, sweet. And then I finished it. And I was the last one. I was the last one through. And it took me forever. And that was just one shitty lady in that day because I can say for everyone else, they had a rider who rides with the last person. That was me, just to make sure you're all right. And then they can radio through. And he rode all the way behind me just to check in that I'm okay. And then also at the end, people were still there and they still kept the finish line up. And so there was people there and then they were cheering you on. Like, and I'll be honest, I was a bit embarrassed because, like, shit, all these people are watching me and I don't always like being a center of attention. But also, I was just like, oh, hell yeah, I've just finished a marathon. And I did it. And that was actually one of my greatest mental battles, like was that going through 42.2 kilometers and what goes in your head when your legs feel like cement before even 22 kilometers. And I was just like, okay. So yeah, it was amazing. And yeah, I'm still really proud, and I still think, oh wow, I did a marathon. That's pretty cool. So yeah.
Absolutely. Very, very cool. Congratulations. And I know it's not the marathon, and I think when people, it's that distance thing. I'm like, it's the mental capability of pushing through. I've not completed a marathon. I've done probably two big running things in my life. Um, and I mean, very long time ago. And I'm still very pleased with that. So
Yep.
my big one was the city to Bondi,
Oh,
city to
yep,
surf.
city to surf. Awesome.
And yeah, I don't ever want to do that again. Ever. I've done it once. I've got the medal. Hey, you know what? I've kept that medal. That's my Olympic medal. I never,
Yep.
ever want to do that again. I've done them Auckland, excuse me, around the bays again once. I don't want to do it again. I know my strengths. Running's not one of them. But I love for all my friends that have and continue to do marathons. I love it. And I love it. For you in particular, this case with that. Um, I just, that woman, I think what a silly comment to say. And what a sad place she's in, considering the adrenaline everyone's feeling and the adrenaline, excitement, and how bizarre. I think it's such an off comment to say, and which spoke volumes about her.
100%.
Absolutely. So wicked. I'm so proud of you because that is just such a huge feat. And I'm not surprised to have read that on your website because I already feel like I know you. And then in terms of your mental resilience, I think it's even more than the mental resilience. Man, you had your tūpuna on your side. You were running with your tūpuna. So that was like hands down. I'm like, yeah, that's a journey. And life is a marathon. So
Definitely. And don't worry, Jane. After that, I never wanted to run again either. It was like, oh hell no! I just remember the next day I could barely walk. I could barely walk all day, and it's just like until I went to I managed to find the hot pools, not hot pools, but a heated pool in Napier and the steam room, and then I came alive. I was like, I can walk now, and then I was just like, I'd never wanted to run again after that, and it's only in the last year I've had that feeling. I was like, actually, I want to start running again. I got that feeling, but nothing. I think one marathon's enough. Yeah.
okay, I've got closing thoughts and a quick round of questions for you. Here we go. Lana, what's your biggest hope for those who seek healing and growth through the work you do?
My biggest hope is that they actually remember is they are their own healer. Everyone's their own healer. It's not actually coming from me. I'm just putting in a space, and you're doing your own healing. And it's a journey, and just take small steps. It doesn't have to be big leaps and bounds. Small steps, micro steps. Even if you take 2 steps forward, 3 back, it doesn't matter. Just keep on the journey. It's always worth it.
And where do you see your journey taking you
Um,
next?
I've got lots of ideas for myself, and one of the things I have thought about for myself is like when I do stop my practice, I'd like to write a book, or I'd like to do some research actually into some of our Niue practices because I've got a lot of questions and curiosities with that. So that might be 20 years down the track. I'm not sure yet.
And for those listening, what one piece of advice or inspiration would you want them to take away from our podcast
I
today?
think I'm going to make it 2. So for the people who want to go home, and it doesn't even have to be Niue, whether anywhere, wherever your home, whether your tūpuna are from, just go home. Don't worry about the mental chatter that comes up around it. Go home because your tūpuna will open their arms for you, and they want you back. And I think in terms of just like everyday living, it's just remember everything's a practice. We're always practicing. Doesn't need to be perfect. And just to forgive ourselves as well. I think those things tie in together. Sometimes we get stuck on the negative aspect of that. So just practicing self-forgiveness, and I add in self-belief as well.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Lana. I appreciate you for sharing your journey and insights into the world of healing, self-love, curiosity, your journey to home and reconnecting with your tūpuna and whenua. We're grateful to have learned from your experiences and your deep commitment to helping others thrive. For those of you listening, be sure to follow Lana on her platforms, Instagram, website.
So Instagram is Maulu Spa, and my website is just my name.com, so it's alanatukuniu.com.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Lana, and for sharing your journey and insights into the world of healing and self-love. We're grateful to have learned from your experiences and your deep commitment to helping others thrive. For those of you listening, be sure to follow Alana on her platforms, check out her socials below, and stay updated on her classes and her workshops and more. And as always, thank you for tuning into What's in Your Kete. Stay inspired, stay connected, and we'll see you next time.